Hey, what's up, VG fam? Seb here, and I'm joined by Alex Donaldson today.
Oh, sorry, I'm in my own world. Hello. Just leave that in. Just leave
Alex,
it in.
so you've been really into this game, Disintegration? Is it? Is it Disintegration?
Yeah, I mean, well, really into it's probably a wee bit strong, but it's
yeah. Well, you've been interested in it, and you're going to tell me a bit about it.
Yeah, I played it at Gamescom back in August, and I thought it was really, really interesting and really, really different. And so I thought I would drag you on here to talk about it a little bit because I think it's an interesting little game that not many people are currently aware of.
Yeah, so Alex, I've never seen this game before. This is the first time actually seeing any footage. So what exactly am I looking at here? What type of game is this?
So just run down the basic facts. It's the developers a company called V1 Interactive, which is a new developer, and it's being published by Private Division, and that is the indie arm of 2K. So Private Division is part of 2K Games, but they're publishing independent games from interesting companies.
Wow, that sounds like a pretty complex setup they've got going on there.
So Private Division is like I say, it's owned by 2K, but it's an indie publisher. So like the Outer Worlds, the upcoming game, Fallout, spiritual successor from Obsidian, that's a Private Division game. Anyway,
so we can expect a good level of quality.
Oh
here.
yeah. I mean, well, I think you always even small budget independent games, but this is clearly a slightly more expensive game. And the big headline is that this is coming from the co-creator. Well, the studio is founded by the co-creator of Halo, so that carries some clout with it. That's a guy called Marcus Leto, and he is, he's a supremely talented dude. And after many years at Bungie, he went it alone, and Disintegration is finally the result. And I think that's the reason that I wanted to do a video on it, because if you say, here's the new game from the creator of Halo, it's a first-person game, it's a multiplayer game, it does have single player as well.
Instantly piques interest, doesn't it?
Also, instantly you get a feeling about what sort of game it's going to be. And here's the thing, Disintegration is not that sort of game.
No.
So it's from first person, but it's actually a real-time strategy game.
Okay, that's very interesting, because what we're looking at seems to be sort of almost some mecha kind of gameplay here.
So your character, the player's character, will always be on like an anti-gravity hovering bike, like a big hovering motorcycle sort of thing, with sidecars and stuff like that. And so you're always floating above the battlefield, and you can move up and down and fly anywhere you want. They can't fly too high, so you're limited in that sense. They can only fly so far off the ground, but you've got quite a lot of movement. You have guns and powers of your own, but then you also have a number of, let's call them minions, who are with you, and you command them during battle. So I played a multiplayer match, and in the multiplayer match it was 5-on-5 team. It was basically capture the flag, and so it was 5-on-5. But that didn't mean it was 5-on-5 in terms of the number of units on the map, because every character had between 2 and I think it's between 2 and 5 minions.
Yeah, there's plenty more kind of fodder.
And those minions all have different powers, different weapons. So you sort of got like rock paper scissors style stuff going on with, certain things are better against hover bikes and pilots, as you call them. The units in
it's
command.
A weakness and strengths type system.
Yeah, some are better at taking on the ground units, and it's really, really, really interesting. And I think one thing that I think is fascinating about it is when I was speaking to Leto about it, he explained to me that the game actually began life as a traditional RTS. So they had a working prototype that looked more like a Command and Conquer game, and then they took a step back and were like, what if you were down on the battlefield with them? And I think that's quite interesting, because a few games have tried that and ended up being cancelled. I remember EA was working on a Command and Conquer first-person spin-off.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up. I remember the Command and Conquer. What was the name?
And
there
was also Renegade, which is the multiplayer shooter.
Renegade,
but that
wasn't
very. It wasn't very RTS-y, whereas I know for a time around the Xbox 360 sort of time, EA did work on and then cancel like a similar idea to this, a first-person strategy sort of mashup.
This genre melding, does it work in this tight sort of arena-based combat? What it looks like?
I totally think it does. I think my one criticism is that the bikes, because they're hover bikes, there's no friction when you're moving around because they're skating on air. And sometimes that feels a little bit uncanny, but this game is in very, very early stages at this point, and clearly they've got time to adjust that. And also, I will say there's multiple classes as well, so it's like maybe some classes are less skatey than others. Some classes are more so for instance, some classes are more focused on you having badass abilities, while others might be more focused on
to your minions, your little men running around
your
on the ground.
your player character might be a bit of a glass cannon in another setup, but he has really powerful minions and so on and so forth. So
this game is still under heavy development at this stage. So a lot is still prone to change.
Yeah, all they've put on it is a 2020 date at this point, which is fine, but and that's exciting. But it could well not be out until very, very late 2020. So
that's a very large window, Alex. That's a very, very large release window.
Well, exactly. So they've got a lot. They've got a lot of potential, a lot of time where they can sort of finesse it out. But I played 2 multiplayer matches, and I really, the first one, I do admit, first of the 2 matches, I was sort of stumbling around a little bit clueless. But the second one, I had a better idea of what I was doing. I was moving a bit more confidently, and it felt great. And that was when I was like, oh, shit, this is actually, there's something going, there's something to this idea, definitely. If you're wondering how it controls, because I think that's important, so you've got sort of standard shooter controls, but then on the D-pad you have multiple abilities, and those abilities are the abilities of your units, of your minions. So you can command them to do stuff by just pointing, aiming in a direction, and tapping.
So
on the
there's a
D-pad.
fair amount of sort of strategy in sending your little minions sort of run in here, attack him.
You can imagine,
get him.
Because obviously, I want to be clear. This isn't a real-time strategy game in the sense that you're zooming out and issuing commands. All the commands happen in the thick of the moment while you're in a first-person shooter mode.
Yeah.
But what's interesting there is, I think you can do stuff like maybe you send your minions up a narrow corridor, and then you flank. So while an opponent is shooting at your minions, you get behind them and then light them up with your player unit.
And your little minions, are they doing any substantial damage?
Yeah, actually, they're really useful, and you really feel it when they're down. So, when they get destroyed, they sort of have a cooldown before they respawn. And they spawn back on you, so they do appear with you. But when one or two of them is down, you feel vulnerable, you feel naked, because they can be meat shields for you, they can heal you or your teammates. So there's all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, and Alex, I do wonder, because you do seem like you're sort of floating around in the air quite a lot. Seems like a pretty easy target to hit.
Well, yeah, I mean, totally. I think the player units can totally be vulnerable, and that's why you've got to use your units wisely, and you've got to use your powers wisely, and that's why I think there's some good potential in this game. Like, I joked when I went in to interview Leto, I said, like, it's cool that you've made this because there's enough shooters in the world. Although we only said it in a joking way, there is an element of truth to that, where there are a lot of shooters. He's made a lot of shooters as well, and this is almost.
I'm sure he would know.
Well, it's almost returning home for him, because the funny thing, of course, is, and you may not know this, or you might, and people watching may or may not know this, but it's not exactly a secret. But Halo began life as a real-time strategy game. It was a Mac exclusive, and it was a real-time strategy game. It was, obviously, Bungie before that had made a number of strategy games, and Halo began life almost as not an expansion pack, but almost like slapping a sci-fi skin on something they'd done before, and then over time Halo morphed into being a strategy game.
Something much larger, yeah.
That's sort of why Halo, for instance, has such distinctive looking vehicles, because they were designed to be in a strategy game where your vehicles have to be really distinct and instantly recognisable, because you need to know.
Oh.
And so it's funny, it's in that sort of DNA, so it's sort of come full circle for him, where he's come back to do a new franchise, and he's ended up making half a strategy game again. And I think that's really exciting. I really enjoyed my demo, like I say, and I just wanted to do this video a little bit to help to get the word out there a little bit more, because I think it's one to watch. Obviously, it's always risky doing something like this, a strategy mashup. It could go completely wrong. But as it stands right now, all I get is excited for it when I think.
Well, we are starting to see a little bit more of these types of genre melding games, and I do quite enjoy them, and I think it's a really refreshing thing to sort of spice up what otherwise is a fairly straightforward formula in most games. But it does look fairly interesting, actually. I'm liking the look of it.
Yeah, and I think
the gameplay looks fun.
I think there's a lot of scope for. You can imagine how when you've got multiple classes, each with different units, each unit has different skills. Straight away, you can get a really vivid picture of how you might have a really powerful really exciting competitive community spring up around this game, how there might be some really exciting tactical opportunities with the systems, and that's what makes me excited, because, you know, I love shooters, but it's always exciting to see something that sort of gives you that rush that you get from shooters, but perhaps challenges your brain in a slightly different way too.
And it's slightly different. Instead of sprinting around corridors, we're floating through, gently floating through the air and blasting grenades.
Yeah, well, you know, yeah, more or less.
Very nice. So, Alex, so 2020 this game's coming out, right? At some point in 2020?
Yeah, that's all they've said so far. And obviously, as we mentioned Private Division earlier, Private Division is sort of only just now spinning up. Like, their first real big release is The Outer Worlds, which, when we're recording this, is not far out now. They're doing Kerbal Space Program 2 and stuff like that. So this is just one of their many exciting projects. But I think, you know, I hope that it goes somewhere, and that when we see it again next year, it will be exciting
even
and
more
interesting
fleshed
and cool.
out.
And yeah, I should say, we haven't really touched on it, but this game totally is going to have a full single player campaign as well, and the story sounds quite interesting, sounds quite intriguing. So yeah,
I mean that's a pretty big thing. That's definitely something to look forward to.
Hopefully it's the complete package, like I say, and I think it's really interesting and different, and that's why I think, you know, you got to give games like this the time of day, definitely.
Awesome. Well, Alex, thanks very much for giving me a little look at this. Quite interesting, and I hope our viewers enjoy it too. We will be taking a deeper look at this game in future. You actually have an interview with Marcus Leto, I think, don't you, Alex, coming up on the website?
Yeah, there's a really cool interview of him where he talks about his time on Halo and how they came to this game, and about the real-time strategy prototype they built and all that sort of stuff. And there's also more detailed hands-on impressions from when I played, so if you want to read a bit more in detail about how it plays and how it feels, definitely recommend you check that out. I'm sure we can pop links in the description.
Yes, awesome. Thanks very much, Alex, and thanks very much, everybody, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.